Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's Agile London. I'm sure you all noticed and were devastated and missed it last week at the sort of non-starter that we had. So welcome back to everyone. It's great to see many returning faces and some new ones too. Just some housekeeping rules. Can I please request that everyone, other than the speakers, remains on mute throughout the whole session? It really helps myself and the speakers too with sort of fluidity of the event, and really allows them a very, very clear platform for them to deliver their talks, which, you know, let's be honest, we're all here to listen to. And then when it comes to sort of Q&As again, I really encourage questions, but can I please request that you send them to me privately in the chat, and then I will ask them to the speakers. Now, do me a favor as well, please be really sort of clear on who you want me to ask the question to, and please be sort of super clear on the question as well. I will ask the questions to our speakers. Again, it helps provide a clear and clean platform for our speakers to answer the question, and it will allow everyone to sort of clearly hear the question through myself speaking as well. So to kick us off, we've got two great speakers tonight. Really have been looking forward to this one. We have Shalini. She is a certified Scrum Master, Agile coach and mentor. Her talk this evening is Agile Mindset. Don't just do Agile, be Agile. And then following Shalini, we have Emily Webber. So Emily's well known within the world of Agile. She is an Agile and digital delivery consultant, coach, trainer, and speaker. She's also the author of Building Successful Communities of Practice. And her talk this evening is Consequent Scanning, an Agile practice for responsible innovators. So we are ready to start. So Shalini, I'm going to hand over to you. The floor is yours. Do you want to just share your screen? I will give you the nod and you can kick us off.
Can you see the screen, Alex?
Not at the moment. Have you shared your screen? There we go. Yeah, that looks great. Yeah, okay. That looks perfect. So I'm going to hand over to you. Off you go.
Thank you, Alex. A very good evening, everybody. I hope you're all keeping well. Thank you for joining the session today with me, Shalini, and I'm working as a Scrum Master at Iris Software Group. Well, this is the first time I'm giving a talk at a remote Agile London meetup group. So I'm extremely glad to be here and meet many new faces and some familiar faces through this lovely event. So what am I going to talk about today? We all know that something that is really inevitable in this world is change. Right from the time we were in the office to us sitting here virtually. COVID-19 has forced a lot of dramatic changes to business. So there are many reasons for us to be agile now than ever before. And that leads to my talk today about the subject, the agile mindset. So before I go ahead and explain about what agile is and what agile mindset is, let me clarify you some of the misconception of what agile is not about. Let's look into the top 3 questions, which I often get asked during our meetups and agile panel discussions. So the first question, is agile a methodology? Or is it a process? Or is agile a framework? So before I address these questions, let's look into the evolution of Agile Manifesto. And that should help us to understand more about Agile and Agile mindset. So back in the 90s, most of the IT projects were managed by the waterfall methodology, where the software development process was so structured and very rigid. Customers were extremely unhappy and their heads were spinning, mainly for 3 reasons. Either the projects ran out of budget, or the projects were not completed on time, or they delivered the software, but with very poor quality, or even worse, it was a combination of all the three. But even when the projects were in budget, scope, and in quality, some of the customers were still unhappy because either what they asked for was not delivered, or they changed their mind already by the time the product got delivered to them. Altogether, the software industry was in desperate need of change. And that is when 17 developers with similar mindset got together and created the Agile Manifesto in February 2001. And that is the evolution of Agile Manifesto. The Agile Manifesto says we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. The Agile Manifesto is defined by 4 values and 12 principles. The values are individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working products over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiations, responding to change over following a plan. Whilst there is value for the items on the right, the items on the left are even more important. That is, there is no value in having processes and tools without the team collaborating and working together. Also, there is no value in producing documents until you produce a working software which the customers want. And there is no point in just negotiating a contract and just get on with software development process. Instead, there should be a frequent communication and collaboration between the customers. And the final value acknowledges the fact that, yes, it is very important to follow a plan, but more than that, we need to have an adaptive mindset. We can also call it as an empirical process where we deliver the software, test it, and get the feedback from the customers and adapt it according to their needs. Now, moving on to principles. There are 12 principles described in the manifesto. I'm not going to explain one by one individually, but on a high level, it emphasizes the importance of customer satisfaction, frequent delivery, self-organizing teams, and cooperation between the business and the teams. So, the Agile Manifesto is all about 4 values and 12 principles. Now let's go back to the questions which we left unanswered in slide 1. Let's clarify those 3 Agile myths. So the first one, is Agile a methodology? Well, a methodology by definition means that a system of methods used in a particular area of study or activity. When we looked into the manifesto, nowhere it described any particular methods of developing the software. It was all about 4 values and 12 principles. So Agile is not a methodology. Now moving to the next one. Is it a process then? Well, a process by definition means that a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. And nowhere in the manifesto we saw any specific steps or actions. Agile isn't something you do, it is something you become. So Agile is not a process. Moving on to the third one. Is Agile a framework? Well, a framework by definition means that a loose but incomplete structure which leaves room for other practices and tools to be included, but provides much of the process required. From the definition, it is quite clear that Agile will not fit into this definition. But the practices like Scrum, Kanban, XP, all those will fit into this model or definition. So Agile is not a methodology, not a process, not a framework. So we saw what is Agile is all about, and most importantly, what Agile is not about. Now let's look into why Agile. Today we are living in a very fast-paced world where both employers and employees are facing a lot of hurdles. If you're thinking from an employer perspective, they are facing a lot of challenges like the competition market and the ongoing demands from the customers. Life is unpredictable and you never know what is coming next. Because of this unpredictability, agility is not a choice. Everyone must travel through the turbulent situations and adapt to the daily changing needs and demands. The traditional ways of very strict, rigid, and hierarchical ways of working will not work in today's agile world. Let's look into the 14th annual State of Agile report, which was published on May 2020 by version 1. As per the report, there are n number of reasons to adopt Agile by an organization. Let's look into the top 3. 71% of the people mentioned that Agile helps their organization to accelerate software delivery. 71%, that's a big number. 63% mentioned that Agile helps them to enhance ability to manage their changing priorities. And 51% mentioned that Agile is helping them to increase productivity. And apart from that, there are many other reasons like Agile is helping them to improve software quality, predictability, team morale, and many more. So we know that Agile is doing best for all the teams and organizations. So we know Agile is best and it gives all the benefits for all the teams and organizations. But even though the Agile Manifesto was created 20 years before, even till today, we are struggling to understand what Agile means in its complete essence. People in the organization do follow all the processes and ceremonies to the nail. For instance, if you're following Scrum in your team, I'm sure you might be following all the some Scrum ceremonies like stand-up, retrospectives, review, and planning. Though organizations and team follow all these ceremonies and processes, still there's a gap in really establishing Agile to its perfection. What really got to question me was the same survey, that is the 14th annual state report published by version 1, which we looked earlier, also highlighted the challenges in scaling and adopting Agile in an organization. As per the report, one of the highest ranked challenges for adopting and scaling Agile continues to be related to organizational culture. It's very shocking to see year after year, organizational culture seems to be the key challenge or the main blocker for adopting and scaling Agile. So the first step towards the culture changes, a shift in the mindset of the individuals in the organization. Let's take a closer look at what an Agile mindset is and how being Agile is different from doing Agile. Well, if you're new to Agile, your focus is more on the practices, processes, and tools. You will be learning all about all these practices and tools and applying them in your day-to-day work in your organization. So by practices, I mean practices like Scrum, Kanban, XP, and so on. And by processes, I mean like the daily stand-ups, sprint reviews, and retrospectives. And by tools, I mean tools like Jira, Mandas, and so on. So I'm sure you might be learning about these and applying those, the tools and practices which fits your team on a day-to-day basis in your organization. Well, this is doing Agile. And this definitely satisfies the management team because you're doing Agile. This is what is represented in the outer layer of the onion. For being Agile, an individual and organization should embody the 4 values and 12 principles of Agile. And we've already discussed about the values and principles already, but the crux is the Agile mindset, which is like the innermost layer of the onion. Now let's look in depth about what Agile Mindset is. As we already discussed, something that is really inevitable in this world is change. And COVID-19 has forced a lot of changes, including the virtual ways of working. And we all adapted to it rather than panicking about it. So basically, accepting the change, embracing it, and trying to adapt to it and moving forward with it without panicking or reverting negatively is what I understand as an agile mindset. A mindset that is ready to encompass the change and are ready to move forward with it. To emphasize, doing agile means following certain practices, tools, and techniques. And being agile means living the mindset with the values and principles. As long as you're embracing the mindset, values, and principles of agile, you can implement any practice you choose. Like you can implement Scrum, Kanban, XP, and so on. And you can even create your own hybrid framework which fits your team. So we saw what an agile mindset is. Now let's look into the key characteristics, what we look for an individual or in a team with an agile mindset. Because we always say this person is agile or this team is agile or that person is not agile. What do we actually mean by that? Or what are the key characteristics we look for an individual or a team with an agile mindset? Well, we look for a team with different perspectives. We look for people who learn from their failure. We look for individuals who are having a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. We need the team to be collaborative. We need self-organizing teams. We want people to challenge the management, challenge other individuals, and most importantly, challenge themselves. We want people to share their knowledge within the team, within the organization, and even outside the organization. These are some of the key characteristics we look for in a team or in people with an agile mindset. Okay, so we look for these characteristics. A team or an individual might possess most or all of these characteristics, but if the leadership does not support the growth mindset or the agile mindset, it is still a blocker. I would emphasize it is a key blocker for adopting and scaling agile in your organization. And that leads to my next slide, which is about agile leadership. Let's see how leadership can help to develop the growth mindset in a team. Embracing the agile mindset requires a deep cleansing for most organizations, particularly the old organizations with a lot of hierarchy and managerial practices. In enterprise agile transformation, 50% of the change is required at the manager's level. The typical command and control or the traditional management style will not work in today's agile world. In one of the McKinsey's article, it says that a change is required in the firm's fundamental DNA. Okay, let me explain you with an example. You do not have to pull plants to make them grow, right? All you need to do is you give it the space for it to grow. Nurture it with enough sunlight, water, and soil. As leaders, you need to make sure you need to provide the right space for the team, for them to be innovative and productive. There is a famous saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. The typical command and control style or the top-down bureaucracy simply doesn't work in today's world. In Agile, command control is enhanced by letting go of control. Let me repeat, in Agile, control is enhanced by letting go of control. And that is what we mean by a deep cleansing in most of the organizations. Okay, now talking about space and environments, There are two types of environments: a psychologically safe environment and a psychologically dangerous environment. Have you ever been in meetings where no one voiced their opinions and people just nodded their head and went down along with the manager's opinion and just accepted whatever the manager or the tech lead said? This is a very typical example for a psychologically dangerous environment. That is an environment where people fear of admitting mistake or less likely to share their ideas. If the leadership does not provide a psychologically safe environment, people are often scared to speak up their minds or to explore new techniques, tools, and processes. Rather, the leadership should provide an environment where people are comfortable in admitting their mistakes, learn from their failure, and everyone share their ideas and thoughts openly. There are a lot of great articles about psychological safety. Amy Edmondson, professor of leadership and management from Harvard Business School and Google, both found in their separate studies that teams which made more mistakes were actually more successful than others, because creating an environment in which people feel comfortable to take risks is key to fostering and cultivating innovation in your workplace. Okay, so we understand that the leadership team should provide a psychologically safe environment, but how do they do that? For a leader to understand the importance of providing a psychologically safe environment, first of all, he or she should have emotional intelligence at a very high level. EI or EQ is very, very important for leadership. Emotional intelligence is one of the most important skills for an effective leader. It is a bedrock for an agile leadership. So what is emotional intelligence? EI is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions and those of the people around you. People with a high degree of emotional intelligence know what they are feeling, what their emotions are, and what it means, and how these emotions can affect other people. According to Daniel Goleman, an American psychologist who helped to popularize EI, there are 5 key elements to it: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Self-awareness as in you recognize your own emotions and how they affect your thoughts and behavior, know your strengths and weakness, and have self-confidence. Self-regulation is all about controlling your impulsive feelings and behaviors. Manage your emotions in a very healthy way and adapting to the changing circumstances. Apart from that, it's also about motivation, empathy, and social skills. Social skills is very, very important. It's the relationship management. It's all about developing and maintaining good relationships, inspiring and influencing others, also how well an individual work in a team, and managing the conflict. I would suggest every single leader should read about, or at least hear talks about, emotional intelligence. And this helps to provide a psychologically safe environment for all your team. And also it helps to create growth or agile mindset, which in turn helps to create a very happy and positive and an agile friendly culture in your organization. So the key takeaway from today's session about the agile mindset is, first, for the leaders, develop your EQ and provide a psychologically safe environment for your team. Most importantly, trust your team. Let me repeat, trust your team. And next, for the team, value the trust provided by the leaders. Take ownership, take responsibility, and rock your work. And there is often this misunderstanding whenever we talk about agile transformation in an organization. Leaders consider that it is the team's responsibility, and the team consider that it is the leader's responsibility to make this change happen. But remember, unity is strength. Alone we can do little, but together we can do so much. The leadership team and the teams should work together and be agile. Don't just do agile, be agile for the successful agile transformation in your organization. With that, I would like to thank everyone for joining the session today with me. And over to you, Alex. Yeah, that's the talk for today. Thank you.
Shalini, thank you very much for that. That was excellent. You did very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Could you please unshare your screen? A couple of questions have come in. Thank you everyone for those. So I will ask those at the end. Okay, I'm going to hand you over to Emily Webber. As I introduced at the beginning, Emily is an agile and delivery consultant, coach, trainer, speaker, and also the author of Building Successful Communities of Practice. Her talk tonight is Consequent Scanning. I'll get that right at one point. An agile practice for responsible innovators. Emily, over to you.
Hey, okay. I know you've just listened to one talk and you're going straight into another one. And I have got a lot of content that I'm going to throw at you in a short space of time. So let me just share my screen and not just show you a picture of my cat. I will show you the slides. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to talk to you about a tool, something you can take away. I will put my slides up on SlideShare or something afterwards, and also this refers to some information that is available online elsewhere, so I'll make sure that you've got the link so you can download information in order to run this for yourselves. So lots of stuff. Okay, let me just check I've got on the right screen. Right, I'm Emily. Hello, I'm an independent agile delivery consultant. I work with lots of organizations that are going through some kind of change. Isn't everyone always some kind of transformation? My focus, my agile lens tends to be around people, how people connect to each other, how people learn from each other, and how we can make better organizations through supporting those interactions. And this is some of my details if you want to, I've got many side projects as well. So here's some of my details. You can find out more about me if you want to. So first of all, I have a question for you. Just a little thought experiment to think about is, does your organization or your team regularly reflect on the consequences of what you put out into the world? So, you know, are you able to find the space to do that? And if you are, great. And is that working? If you're not, how does that sit with you? Have you ever been part of a team or have you ever had concerns about something that you're creating or your team is creating that you're unable to voice? And have you ever been on a team or in an organization that takes the chance to kind of sit down and look at the impact of what it is that they've created on the world and on the complex system that is people beyond our users and beyond our users? So there's an important question underlying consequent scanning. Is the tech mantra of moving fast and breaking things working? So this idea that, you know, you just kind of make stuff, see what happens, break stuff, and tidy up and deal with it afterwards. And if you look at some of these organizations, you may recognize some of these organizations. And often all of these are up here because they have been called evil in some way. And, you know, did they intend to be evil? Did Facebook intend to have the influence it does on politics? Did Airbnb, you know, it started out as something to help people rent out rooms? Did it intend to displace communities? Or MSpy is a really interesting one, which is software you can put on your kids' devices to see what they're up to, and then that you know, has been used maliciously by people trying to control their partners, and how things are used in ways that end up being not necessarily the way that they intended. And did they intend to be evil? The question is probably no. I'm hoping the answer is probably no. Sorry. No. What happens when that happens? So Everyone was a responsible tech think tank, and they had done some research over the years, and in 2018, and I think they repeated this again. They published a report called the People, Power and Technology Report, which is about digital attitudes. And what they found is that people see the internet as good for them personally, as individuals, but less good for society. So they got quotes like, if you painted a picture of the street, everyone would be looking down at their phone. You know, there's cultural changes that's happened because of the tech that we have. Or someone saying that they use Facebook every day, but they find it bittersweet, as probably many of us do, particularly in some current challenging political things that are going on, that, you know, you have something that you look at on a day-to-day basis or on your journeys, but actually, you know, what does that mean in terms of seeing hate speech, violence, or, as someone puts here, idiotic opinions. And they also found that many leaders of the biggest tech companies admitted they simply do not think about the consequences of what they're creating. So this is also on a website called Tech Transform, which has come out of the research that Everyone has done. And as a result of leaders not looking at consequences, companies have suffered massive reputational damage and missed opportunities to harness human diversity to solve problems, and created products that not as good as they could have been. And so, you know, they're saying here they didn't have time to reflect, both, you know, when they're building something and when it's out in the world. And there are lots of potential unintended consequences. So often, a lot of the tech teams that I've been on or worked with, we hopefully spend time thinking about our users and how what we create impacts the people that are going to be directly using those things. But often it kind of stops there. We don't necessarily think beyond that and how that impacts society. So there are some unintended consequences that could include things like lack of digital understanding or lack of access. So things like, you know, Twitter got a lot of backlash for the audio feature that they launched that wasn't accessible for deaf and hard of hearing community. You know, unintended users and uses, like the M-Spy software being used by people in a not very good way. You've got things like security monitoring and support. So like when BA lost all of their got their database hacked and suddenly everyone had access to people's credit card details. Maybe changes in norms and behavior, and how does tech impact the way that society behaves? You know, the looking at your phone all the time. Things like displacement, so communities being displaced from where they are, and also impact on the planet. So how does what we do impact kind of our wider the environmental issues? So sometimes making things easier isn't always the right thing to do. Often our tech makes our life easier, but thinking about how that impacts the wider system, we don't often get a chance to do, and there's lots of ways that that can happen. So fortunately, this is where consequent scanning comes in. So I was asked by Everyone to come and help them create an Agile event that they could start helping teams. You know, they've got all this research about what's out there and what people think and what people, you know, people wanted to have an impact and change the way that they do things. So I helped Everyone create this event called Consequent Scanning. And it sits alongside other Agile processes in an iterative development cycle. So it's supposed to sit in your, you know, your regular Agile events that you might have if you're an Agile team, or just sit into a regular cadence if you're not an Agile team. So I worked with a woman called Sam Brown on creating this. And consequent scanning allows teams to consider the potential consequences of what you're building, provides the opportunity to mitigate and address potential harms and disasters before they happen, and also look at things once, you know, maybe they have happened. And it gives people in teams a voice and space for that conversation. So the event itself, there's three things that we wanted to do, and this is much like other Agile events. We had some principles around creating it, and those are these three principles: that any event should be lightweight, simple to understand, and difficult to master. So lightweight meaning you don't need a lot of materials, prep, or even expertise to conduct it or participate. If you're in a room, you just need some post-it notes and a wall space. You know, if you're online, there's lots of tools that can facilitate those kind of Agile events. simple to understand, so it's really easy for people to understand what you're supposed to do, how you do it and why you do it. And difficult to master, meaning, you know, once you start to really get into the difficult conversations, you'll get better at it as you go. So it demands critical, creative and systems thinking, and it also needs a safe space for people to think openly and talk candidly about their concerns, about what they're building, about the world. So it's can be difficult at first, but it gets easier the more that you do it. So the consequent scanning itself asks 3 questions. These are: what are the potential intended and unintended consequences of a product or a feature? So what is it that you want it to do, and what are the things that it might do that maybe you don't want it to do? What are the positive consequences that you want to focus on, and what are the consequences that you don't think are good and you might want to mitigate? So it's really that chance to bring all that out and decide whether you want to work on some of those things or not. So I'm going to run you through how those questions fit into the workshop context. So this is how you run the consequent scanning workshop, the practical bit. Firstly, who should be involved? So this is your core team. If you're on an Agile team, this is your multidisciplinary team of developers, designers, user researchers, product owners, whoever that might be. It's not an Agile team, it's your team, the people that work on what it is you're doing on a day-to-day basis. User advocates, so if you don't have user advocates in your team, you want to be able to hear the user voice when you're having these conversations, and really get to the people that represent who this is going to, who your product or feature is going to affect. Collaborators and specialists, so this might be risk, legal, security, policy, business people, people that might know things, have specialist information that you need in order to make decisions, and any other relevant stakeholders, again, that either need to be involved in the decisions or need to be part of the conversation and understand why certain decisions are being made. So the workshop is in 2 parts, and that is ideation and action, much like lots of Agile style workshops. The first part of ideation is introduction. So what is the focus of the event, and posting up intended consequences. So any feature or product should have some kind of, you've got some reason for doing it, you've got some consequences or impact that you want to make. So a bit of prep, putting those up beforehand is helpful. Then asking the group to take some quiet time, and quiet time is really important in any kind of workshop because it allows everyone to have a voice, and it allows them to have a voice without being influenced by other people in the room. So if you're physically in a room, it's often sitting on your own, writing post-it notes, writing things down for yourself that you want to share, and you can do that obviously remotely with whiteboarding tools, and asking everyone the first question, which is what are the potential intended and unintended consequences of this product or feature, of which you may get lots of different things, and you want to go broad on this. Then the next step is affinity sorting, so everyone posting up and sharing what it is that they have written. And then it's always good to put this on post-it notes so you can move things around, or on a virtual whiteboard on post-it notes so you can move them around. Everybody puts up what they've written, explains it, and you group similar ideas together. So you've got some affinity sorting. And then quiet reflection, so everyone having an opportunity to then add new consequences based on what others have said, or add on top of what others have said. So just another chance to kind of think again. The second part of the workshop is action. So in the first part, you've gone really broad, collected lots of ideas, lots of thoughts. Then you want to kind of narrow down and say, what are we going to do with this? How we. Step 5, so this is sorting consequences into action categories. And these are really useful, these categories, in things like retrospectives as well, to help focus the team on what you can actually do something about. So those categories are act, things we can control and we can directly do something about. influence things that we can't do something directly about, we can influence others to do something directly about, or monitor as things outside our control. So things outside our control may be, you know, they may be on a national level or on a global level. It might be things like, you know, COVID or like how the government's dealing with that. Things you might want to keep an eye on, but you can't actually influence. Once you've done that, it gives you a better idea of where you can put your work. Then some dot voting, and dot voting is where everyone gets a chance to quietly, maybe you have 3 votes, 5 votes, depending on what makes sense, putting them on the groups that you think are most important, and asking and taking those top ones. It's always good to prioritize at this point, so you're not talking about absolutely everything, because you can spend days doing that. Taking the most important ones and asking what are the positive consequences that you want to focus on, and what are the consequences you want to mitigate. Discussing those as step 7, deciding what actions you're going to take and who will take responsibility for them, to making sure that you're actually going to follow up from them, and also recording any decisions or conversations that you have, or things that you might want to park for later. So you may find that you have consequence that you think, we're going to keep an eye and see what happens. We're not going to do anything about this right now, but we're going to keep a note of it and see how it develops, or if it does develop. And then closing that down. And as I said, these are all available in the Consequent Scanning download, so I will share that with you as well. And I'll run through things very quickly. The great thing is that for the work that Everyone did, and what is available on the website, is some prompts for thinking beyond the user. So some prompts to get people thinking what kind of consequences are, how they can think beyond their, kind of get out of ways that they are used to thinking. So things like, what can it mean for people in their professional life? A great example of this is if you have a location-aware dating app. Like, do you want that location-aware dating app to be pinging you and a colleague? Like, sometimes maybe you don't. It sounds like location-aware dating app sounds great, but maybe you don't want that in certain situations. How, what could it mean to communities? What could it mean to the well-being relationships of your users or for other people? And what could it mean for consumers of your product, and things like security, reliability, support, etc. There's also the prompts on the website, which is the unintended consequences prompts, which is the things that I talked about earlier. So things like lack of digital understanding, unintended users, and the ones are on there. And I'm not going to go through all those, because again, you can download those with examples on the site. So it's all very handy. All very handy, yes. So a couple more things. When should you do consequent scanning? You should do it at the early stages of product and development, or whenever you're thinking about making something new, or making a new product or make a new feature. So at the initial concept stage, when you're thinking about kicking something off, during roadmap planning, so you're thinking about the stages of things that you're going to do into the future, and every time a new feature is introduced is a great time to say, we're building this feature, what might it mean? And always having a chance to revisit that. And it might mean that sometimes those conversations are really short and it's just a check-in, and sometimes they're much longer. And remember to document and record what it is that what you decided, so that you can revisit it. So record decisions, release your features, and review your consequences, and always have that chance to come back and say, not only are we thinking about this at the point that we're making it, we're going to keep an eye on it and see how it develops, and see if any of the consequences that we were maybe worried about start to develop, so that if something does go in the way that you don't want, you get a chance to make a decision and have the conversation about that. So just my question to you is, what will you do to consider the consequences of what you or your team or your organization creates? And you can download all of this at the Tech Transform website, which is tech-transformed.com. Consequent scanning is there, as well as some other tools as well. So thank you. That's a very quick whistle-stop tour.
Emily, thank you very much for that. Really enjoyed it. So we have had some questions come in, so I'm going to go straight into them. So some of these questions have come in to you both. So Shalini, I'll go to you first, as Emily has just spoken. But Emily, once Shalini has delivered her answer, can you jump straight in with yours as well? So question one, how do you transition from a psychologically dangerous environment to one of safety, seeing that as an agile transformation lead, you have no powers? Shalini? You're on mute. Oh, there you go. I'll unmute you. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please. Yeah.
How do you transition from a psychologically dangerous environment to one of safety, seeing that as an agile transformation lead, you have no powers in yourself?
So, always I think there's this misunderstanding that the transformation happens with the control of one individual. It doesn't happen that way. We need to educate the team members and managers what Agile is all about. So once you have that education about Agile to the management level, right from top down, from the CEO to every single member, I think the danger environment will naturally go away. The issue will happen when you have a different mindset of people within the organization. So it's up to the agile coach or the transformation lead to educate on the behavioral side within the management and within the team. So a lot of control can be there. That might include some tough conversations with the management and within the team. But I think go for it, take it as a challenge, and it would naturally flow in. So education of Agile is the key thing here, I would say.
So to add from my side, I think transformation happens both kind of bottom up and top down, and there are some things that you can. So I spend a lot of time bringing people together through things like communities of practice, which is a really great way to help give people some safety, at least amongst people that really care about the same things as them. And that's really great, but that will come up against barriers if it's not if initiatives like that aren't supported by the top as well. So I think there's kind of two levels, and it might be that it's the bottom up, and it's also dealing with the leadership. As Shalini was saying, the leaders need to be on board, and they need to have the right mindset in order for the organisation to change. Because if you have bottom up stuff happening and the leaders quash that, it will quickly kill any motivation and make people very unhappy, and that's not very good. So it might be that as a agile transformation lead, that you have access to those at the top. It might be that you don't. It might be that you are able to influence others. So it's often these things are about who you know and who you can talk to and how you can influence that change, as well as showing change happening as well. So it's a bit of telling and there's a bit of showing.
Thank you to you both for those. Next question, again, Shalini, I'll go to you first. When working in agile ways of working, how do we adapt to changes in business requirements while minimizing wasted effort?
Can you repeat that question again, Alex?
Within agile ways of working, how do we adapt to changes in business requirements while minimizing wasted effort?
Well, I think this is there is a great teamwork required here between the PO and the Scrum Master, I would say, because we often think that whenever we talk about requirements, we kind of put that thing to the PO's head. Okay, PO is who kind of give all the requirements, and sometimes organization misunderstand that it's a combined effort of the team and the PO. So again, I would say whenever it comes to requirement, as team members, I would highly recommend you to challenge. If a requirement comes, ask for it. Is that really required for the customers? one thing I would highly recommend is that have a direct customer collaboration. Yes, PO plays a very key role in or kind of the middleman between the customers and the team. But I have seen in my experiences where we have a direct communication with the customers, that benefit which we get is very, very high. So include the customers in your sprint review session, or in fact, I would say not just wait for the review sessions. Have that constant collaboration and communication with them, and that should help to minimize the waste and help to understand what they actually want. Yeah, so the constant collaboration with the customers would be my recommendation. So I would love to hear Emily's opinion also on this.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time working government in the UK, which has a very strong focus. The digital teams in government have a very strong focus on user needs. One of the core principles of government digital service where I used to work was user needs over government needs, which is really saying that we need to meet the needs of our users in order to meet the needs of business, really. So there's a really strong focus on is the requirements from the business real? Are they kind of validated by what we understand from the users, or are they not? But the other thing is with agile development, and if you are taking things in small chunks and delivering them quickly, then if those things don't work, you haven't spent a long time on doing them, throwing them away isn't hugely wasteful. If you're getting things out to real users and customers, that's where the value is, and you're seeing how that's used. That's how you build value on top of that. So it's without digging down into what that question really is asking. I think there's delivering quickly helps with that. Yeah. Thank you,
Shalini. And again, Emily, I'd like to hear your opinion on this as well. After Shalini's spoken. Suppose a team is adopting Agile Scrum. As a Scrum Master, how should he/she approach the stakeholders to help them understand about the changes a team will go through? How do you convince them with the new Agile approach?
That's a very good question, and I would like to answer this from my personal experience because I became a Scrum Master this year in February 2020, and this question is very applicable to what I had gone through in my current organization. What I was given was in February 2020 when I got this job, I was given a new team, and my organization was like, Shalini, it's all of yours. You build this team, which was a challenge in its own way. But that was a blessing, I would say, because I could build this team in the way which I wanted. With respect to that, yes, we are following Scrum. But what I did was, after all these readings and learnings, I tried to kind of build a hybrid way of working, hybrid framework. I'm kind of using a bit of XP, which is extreme programming, and also the Scrum, and try to educate within the organization and outside the organization what are the various ways which I am following within the team. I wrote an article in LinkedIn. That was the first step, and did various Agile meetups. I'd given a talk in Agile 101 meetup. So I would say try out different practices, whether you do Scrum or XP or whichever framework you're using. Try to write article or try to give talks in the meetups. Try to educate others, and once you do that, others will know what you have done, and try to explain to them what are the various things you have done. So the thing which I had done was I wrote an article in LinkedIn. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, you'll see the article, and also I've done the meetup talks and sessions, how I kickstarted a new Scrum team at Iris Software Group.
To add to that, this is so definitely helping people understand how teams are working is really important, because often people have been working in certain ways, successfully, unsuccessfully, various successes for many years, and suddenly if there's a new bunch of people working in a different way that doesn't fit with what they do, it can seem quite unusual. So helping bring them along on the journey is really important. I also think it's really crucial that we think about the team beyond the core team that are working, so beyond the Scrum team, for example. So I have a post on a thing that I call the Team Onion, which talks about we have our core team, but we also have people that we need to collaborate with in our organizations because we're not in a bubble, and collaborate with them in terms of helping, in terms of the fact that they have specialist information and knowledge, and there's dependencies and various things, and working together is the only way to be successful. So if they are really collaborators, so maybe people in policy, legal, marketing, various other things, is actually bringing them along on the journey and helping fit work together where it needs to fit together, and not just expecting everybody to suddenly shift to the way that you're working. So making that work really well, understanding what their fears are, understanding what their challenges are, and understanding how you can help them and fit into what they do. And also there's a lot of showing and telling with Agile teams. So Scrum has sprint demos, other teams might have show and tells or various things, is being really open and transparent about what you're doing and what you're achieving, and showing the value in by actually showing working software and showing happy customers and happy users really helps bring people along.
I would like to add one more point to that from whatever I told. Investing in the people is really, really important. You know, you might be following all the ceremonies and processes, but if you do not take time for the people you work with as Scrum Masters, there is no point in whatever processes you do. So my recommendation to all the Scrum Masters is that spend time for your team. You know, I mean, at Iris, we have a different level of structure where Scrum Masters are also acting as team managers. I know it's slightly different to the usual Scrum thing, but you give whichever title, you know, the manager, lead, or Scrum Master, whatever it is. Do as leaders, you invest for your team. It is very, very important, because as we spend more time at work than with family, so the people should be happy, and as leaders you should have high EI or the EQ to have this mindset to give time for your team. I think.
Thank you. Another question, let's go to you both for this one. Emily, I'll jump to you first on this one. I'm a product manager at a London startup. Can you share any resources or courses to learn the Agile practices to implement on my team? We do have a setup going, but I don't believe it's the perfect one. I'd like to improve the velocity of my team, leading to better and faster outcomes. Can you help?
That's a really hard question. And I am not sure how to answer it. I think I would ask a follow-up question: is the, as a product owner, product person, whatever, product manager, I can't remember what you said, is there a delivery manager or Scrum Master or Agile lead on the team as well? Would be my
Himanshu, are you there?
Yeah, no, so we don't have a Scrum Master or a separate delivery person. It's us ourselves who are project managing the work.
That's challenging, because essentially you're trying to do the product management and the delivery management at the same time.
It's 19 hours.
I'm sorry. That was my computer. Sorry.
And I'm going to say I don't have a clear answer. I think there's lots of elements to Agile and being an Agile lead on a team. There's elements. It's worth thinking about what kind of things is it that you want to learn. So there's elements around people and helping people work effectively as a team. There's elements around tech and how you can get to kind of better continuous delivery and continuous flow. And there's also a whole bunch of obviously a whole bunch of elements about understanding different tools and techniques, frameworks, methodologies, principles and stuff that you can draw on to help your team be more effective. So it's worth to give you the classic consultant answer of it depends. It's worth thinking about and also working with your team to help understand what are the kind of specific areas that you think you need to work on, or at least work on first, and looking for things like blogs, things like, there's a lot of online talks as well, and training that helps to do that.
Shalini, do you have anything to add?
No, I think I would have done just the same as Emily, so I would completely agree to Emily on those sides. Yeah, so nothing much.
Okay. And last and final question has come into both of you. If you had to identify one positive and one negative in the new COVID-19 world, what would that be? Shalini?
Okay, so I'll start with positive. Let me think about the negative. Okay, negative, I'll park it for now. The positive thing is that, to be honest, I got a lot of time to kind of fulfill a lot of my dreams. For instance, I could write the article which I want, and I could participate in various agile panel discussions, and I wrote 2 certifications. I did my ScrumMaster certification. I did my advanced ScrumMaster certification. So all these things I could do because less travel to work, and I could spend more time for me. And being a mom, having that work-life balance is very important. I'm somebody who'd like to kind of have that a proper, 100% dedication to work plus 100% dedication to family. So I think that is the main positive thing. See, I'm not just making this about this negative question. I'm not just making it up, but whoever know me, know my personality. There is nothing negative as such, because if you're thinking about negative, it could add from one point to another. So I don't have anything negative to say. Yes, one thing is that I'm not happy about the whole situation, whatever has happened to many individuals and people. I'm not happy about that at all. But at this point, what we need to do is that be strong and think what we can do to help ourselves, our family and others. I think that's what we are doing here, right? Through this meetup events, etc. So that would be my answer for this question.
You're such a glass half full person. Which is brilliant. I'm complete opposite. So I think that some of the things I've seen around this suddenly working in a distributed way, which has really kind of forced organizations to move very quickly on things that were impossible that suddenly became possible. So one organization that I was working with, where no one worked remotely, suddenly they were able to, all their call centers were people working from home. So there's a lot of kind of rapid change that's happened that I think is really good. And I've also seen and heard from some people around some flattening of hierarchy, in that suddenly you haven't got people in the corner office. Everyone is at home. You can see into people's homes, which adds an element of kind of personal understanding around it, and there's a real benefit to that. On the kind of less positive side, I do have some negatives. Aside from kind of, there's a lot of kind of mental health and burnout. And I have actually seen one organization that I was working with, people were expected to be more online. So they were working, it wasn't in the UK, but they were working kind of crazy hours, all 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. And they're expected to be just there and online, which was really not great for that organization. But the other thing that I think that we are missing a lot of is serendipity and serendipitous moments. So when you're at work in an office, you do things like see what's on people's walls, or have a chat with someone in the kitchen, or have lunch with people that you maybe are not on your team. And those can lead to really great things, or just support. So finding ways to have meetings with people that are not kind of planned agenda meetings is quite important, and making sure that we stay connected to people is quite important. I'm not sure that everyone is doing that.
Emily? Thank you very much. And Shalini, thank you very much for the answer to that question too. Yeah, it's certainly challenging times, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So stay positive. So that brings this week to a close. Thank you very much. A real special thank you to Emily and Shalini for your fantastic talks this evening. You know, these events don't happen without, you know, fantastic speakers putting themselves forward to deliver a talk on these Wednesday evenings. Again, and thank you very much to everyone for joining as well. All these sessions are recorded. They're on the Oliver Bernard meetup page, YouTube page. My name's Alex Scriven, despite the fact it says Oliver Bernard on my name. That's the company I work for. If you want to continue talks and you want to, or you're looking for work or you're looking to hire, do reach out on LinkedIn. You know, I know a really good recruitment agency that will be able to help. So do utilize that. We are back next week. As I said, this is all recorded and will be going up on our YouTube page within the next 24 hours. So just to finally say, Emily, thank you very much once again. And Shalini, thank you very much once again. Everyone, have a great evening, and I hope to see you all next week. See you later.
Thank you very much.
Alex.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.